Welcome to Puzzling Company, your home for at-home puzzles and mysteries. Here are your hosts, Jared and Zach.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Puzzling Company. It's your host, Zach, and always with me is...
It's Jared.
It's Jared.
It can only be Jared.
Every kiss begins with K.
How dare you?
Dude, what? It's the better jeweler.
It is not the better jeweler.
It is. Okay, just because your name's involved in a business...
Automatically the better jeweler.
Wrong. But, you know what? We can probably agree on something in this episode, right?
What do you got?
Who are we going to be talking about today on this episode?
Oh, we better be in agreement on that, or this episode is going to be wildly confusing for our audience.
I'm really excited because I really want to talk about something else instead. Let's see what you have to say, though.
To my understanding, we were talking about the fantastic at-home print-and-play digital hybrid games by CU Adventures.
Okay, we can agree on that. That's
okay,
fine.
Excellent. Good.
Cool. Well, we hope you guys are going to enjoy the episode. It's going to be definitely a blast, to say the least, but we hope you stick around and enjoy.
Zach, I'm so sorry to hear about the robbery at your house last night. Are you okay?
I'm fine. But Jared, literally no one broke into my house last night. But I do feel a little upset because you did stand me up for game night.
Okay. Your text literally reads, "break in tonight!" !
Jared, that's literally the name of the game. It's a really cool new concept where you're trying to solve puzzles to break into the game instead of out of it. All their games follow really cool narratives about real-life places. We really should have people check it out in our show notes to get details on where they can pick up this game.
So it's called Break In?
Yes, it's breaking in, not breaking out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right, welcome back, guys. So in this segment, we're going to be discussing the game itself, which is CU Adventures. It's not just one game, Jared, but it's two.
How dare you? You lead me here to believe that we usually talk about one game, and now we're going to be talking about two.
Exactly, yes.
Well, I'm actually way more excited now.
Hey, exactly, yes. So we're going to be talking about two games. One is The Lost Temple.
Ooh.
The second is Floor 13.
Oh, that sounds menacing as well.
Sounds mysterious, I know. But we're going to be discussing both of those. In this segment, we're going to talk about like the goods of the game, what we really enjoyed about it, our overall thoughts, as well as the things that we thought could have room for improvement or have like some criticisms about the game. But overall, it's just for me and Jared to go back and forth and kind of discuss how we felt. So I'm actually going to let Jared start this off. Jared, what's one of the things that we enjoyed about this game?
So as we mentioned in our super brief intro, this game is at the intersection of print and play games, which if you're not familiar with that is just something that is pretty self-explanatory. It's something you can download, print from your own printer, play at home, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has a very, very strong digital component.
Ooh.
And
Digital.
This is not a meeting point that we see a lot with games.
No, not really.
It is very unique. And if I'm being 100% honest, when I first saw it, I thought, nah, like, probably won't work. Like, print and play meets digital. Those are two wildly different worlds.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wrote it off. And then other people that we knew recommended that we play this game. We said, okay. And man, was it satisfying.
It's a very solid game. Both of them. Both games.
Both are really great games. But what was so satisfying about it, in my opinion, is that the print and play version of it took care and kind of occupied that physical space that we really enjoy. So all the tangibility, the interactions that can't take place in a digital world, that's what we had the print and play for. And then most of the immersion, storytelling, those elements relied on the digital component, but then they came together really, really well.
Yeah, it's like a melting pot between the two, and it just both flowed into each other like very solid, like very, very well, right? I think and we'll talk about this more on both ends, but I think the design of the website, kind of their digital aspects
was fantastic.
Was so well done that if you didn't have the paper aspects, like the website alone is
I agree.
Very solid. You can make a game out of that and make that work.
I agree.
But obviously the print and play aspect of it perfected it. It gave it, like you said, the tangibility. So that was really great to have that mix.
Right. And just so everybody's aware, this game comes with different options on how you want to experience the physicality.
Yes.
There is what Zach and I opted to do, which is the print and play, but they also have an upgraded version, which is nice wooden pieces, wooden ciphers, like really premium products that we come to expect in a lot of other experiences. So you can really experience this on a number of different levels. But we chose to experience it on the print and play because that is what we felt like most people would be experiencing on it.
Yeah.
And it worked. By all means, if you want the upgraded version, go and get it. I think it'll up the level even more. But we played it, printed it off at my house, brought it into where we play our games, and it played super well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was definitely a blast. And then the next thing that we really liked about it, which I've covered a little bit already, is the online gameplay like system and design. The website is flawlessly done.
I agree.
It is. I don't think we've played a game like this where it has a layout or design that flows as well, but also tracks everything that you do as well.
Agreed.
So in the game, right, just like any other kind of like at-home mystery, escape room, puzzle hunt, there are things obviously you are trying to find an answer. In this game, you will find things that you can pick up, so like keys, whatever, right, to unlock, open locks, doors, etc. It is able to track that, and it tracks when you used it. It tracks when you picked it up. If you like accidentally like go back a page on your web page, it still tracks everything. You don't lose it accidentally for doing that. It just flawlessly makes you feel like you never lose track of what you've done.
Absolutely.
And then in the bottom, it has a spot to show you exactly what you have still on you, what you've used, your clue system, the narration, if they do any of it through the website, which they do. I remember specifically in Lost Temple, I think there's some of it in Floor 13 as well. There are, because there's a few hints that involve sound effects and stuff like that. But it's just all brilliantly like well done. It blew my mind how well they did.
Yeah, because they kind of took from older point and click, point and play systems,
very much so,
and really just made it smooth. They sharpened it.
It's like modernized.
Yeah, it was very modernized, and it felt very seamless. And again, it felt like the marriage between that system and the print and play, 8.5, 11 piece of paper that we were cutting things out of and writing on. It felt like this all goes together.
Yeah.
And I just think it was super, super well done and very, as we'll talk about in a second, very creative how they use some of those print and play elements. But that does lead us into the third thing that we really liked about this game, is that it just had really great puzzles.
Yes.
Very
much so.
Very satisfying solves. We'll talk about this a little more when we're talking about our critiques, but we felt like that was a little more true of Lost Temple and a little less true of Floor 13 in our experience. But they just killed it on the puzzle. Like, they were varied. They solved very cleanly. There was never a moment where we were wondering. And it worked also because it kind of gave that escape room feel of going room to room, exploration. That all fed into what made the puzzles really fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah, very much agree with that. I mean, on a lot of fronts, it blew it out of the water. I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, it just all came together.
Yes.
Every component of the game came together really well, and it was really strong. And I think the other thing that really drives home this is just the affordability of all of this.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Because right now, we are sitting, thawing out from the cold front that came through the south.
The snow of 2021.
The snow apocalypse, or ice apocalypse based on where you were living.
Yep.
And it was great on the price front, but also, like, this is a game that if you were like, oh, this is the worst podcast ever, but I really want to play a game, you could go play this game right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for anything in the mail.
Nope.
It is a huge advantage of what they did. And the other thing that's really cool is it's a minimum of $10. But you can spend up to I've never tested the upper limit.
I don't know what the higher limit of the donation is.
But if you wanted to go back and be like, yo, that was worth $20, well done, you can kick them extra money, and that helps them as well.
Yeah, I mean, affordability is huge, especially through trying times. Like when we originally played it, which was like early last year or like middle of last year.
It was like right as...
It was like when COVID,
yeah.
And obviously everyone has been, like quarantining at home and stuff like that during that time. For us, later, a little bit on, we were able, because we had been kind of quarantining like together at points, we were able to play the game. And I mean, it was perfect. We couldn't do anything else. So it was really nice being able to just actually like sit down and spend like, I think we spent like 2 hours, hour and a half when we originally played Lost Temple. And it was fantastic. I mean, it's perfect for those moments where we're just kind of stuck and we can't do anything else. And I know obviously a lot of other people are like that.
Yes. The mail is not perfect right now.
Yeah.
Packages do not come when they arrive.
True.
However, if you have a solid internet connection and a printer, well, you are in luck because you have a fantastic game that you can just pick up right now and play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about our constructive criticism. As we always say, these are our personal beliefs. They are well thought out, well researched. We go through, as we always mention, a pretty rigorous process every time we finish a game. But at the end of the day, these are Zach and I's thoughts, and we don't intend them to tear anybody down, but honestly to build up the people that we are reviewing.
Yes, absolutely.
So the dislikes that we're going to go down this route are actually going to be in the comparison of two games.
Yeah.
Because both games, as we said, they're fairly solid. We would have to dig pretty deep to get into the nitty gritty
for each game
of what we didn't like. But in our opinion, there definitely is one game that was more solid than the other. And I think comparing and contrasting them against each other will help bring to light the elements of one that really worked versus the elements of the other one.
Yeah. Agreed.
So just flat out, we much preferred The Lost Temple to Floor 13.
Yes.
Like we said, both great games.
Absolutely.
If they
both very solid.
If they dropped 4 more games and I found that out right now, I would stop doing this podcast and go play them.
Do you want to go play?
They've got more games out. But we much preferred The Lost Temple. And I think that speaks a lot because usually the first time you play a game in a series, you're learning the do's and the don'ts.
Yeah.
There's hiccups. There are systems that you may not be familiar with that take away your enjoyment from the game. And we've experienced that in other series that we've played.
Yeah.
That was not the case.
Yeah, it was not the case in this one.
It came out so smoothly and clean, and we want to talk about why that is. So when we're doing Floor 13 versus Lost Temple, Zach, what is the first thing that we noticed was a big difference between the two?
I think the big difference that I specifically noticed a lot, and Jared will agree with this because it happened during our game, is the guessability of answers, specifically more in Floor 13 than in Lost Temple.
Now, do you mean that intentionally or accidentally guessing the answer?
Accidentally.
Okay.
I don't think it's we never intended to like just purely like try to cheat the right. I wouldn't say cheat's the right word, but it wasn't like my purpose to be like, okay, I'm gonna like try not to do the puzzle and just answer it.
Right, because we love doing the puzzle.
Yeah. There was just a few specifically in Floor 13 that we did where I just and it could be a part of it, right? Is that if you're more experienced, you're playing more of these games, you just kind of have an idea when you see a puzzle, you go, okay, I see this layout, I see these things, I assume it's this, potentially. Right?
Yes.
We still kind of work it out, but in my head, I've already kind of solved it. So we had one clue specifically we did in Floor 13 that I remember very well, that Jared had put out the piece of paper and was staring at the grid of coffee stains, is how I'll put it. And don't get me wrong, it's not the hardest clue or the hardest puzzle by any means. And I think when we talk to them, I think it's intended that Floor 13 is a little bit easier.
It is. Yes, they intended it to be a little more approachable
than like Lost Temple.
Right, yes.
So don't get me wrong.
Which could also have added to why we enjoyed one more than the other.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
But specifically, there was one clue that I instantly noticed what it was trying to do. And I let Jared kind of still work it out because I still wanted to see if like my idea was correct, but I pretty much told him what I thought it was going to be instantly. And it was exactly that. So, but we had a few cases of those where we just kind of like, I just saw something and in my head, I could almost guess it.
Yes.
And then whenever like we would run through it, my answer was correct. So I was like, okay, I could easily, if I wanted to, have just skipped like two. I think in this game, it was like 2 puzzles specifically that I remember. I don't think there was much more. There might've been a little bit that we kind of like were able to work around it a little bit easier. But yeah, in this game specifically, because I know in Lost Temple, I don't think there was any point that we really were able to
accidentally stumble
upon an answer or figure it out ourselves without actually playing it.
Right. We didn't have to engage the process to get the answer. And that's not horrible.
No.
But what it can turn into, and we've played other games like this, is especially because this happened early on in Floor 13.
Yes.
It makes you wonder, was I just supposed to guess that answer?
Yeah.
Like, was I supposed to bring out outside information into this game?
Yeah, potentially.
So I think it's just super important for game creators to remove common answers to themed puzzles,
Mhm.
because otherwise your player may be confused if they accidentally guess the right answer, and it makes them question what is actually going on in the experience.
Yeah.
I have made games in the past. So one of the things we create is citywide escape games. They're usually based loosely around a theme or a story. They're more of a puzzle hunt where you're researching.
Yeah.
But what we made a big mistake on in the very first one we made is that our answers were so thematically appropriate that some of our teams were just plugging in answers. Like an example is there was an Egyptian-based puzzle. People were trying pyramid and sphinx when they could not get the answer and could skip the hints and then just moving on, and it kind of ruined the competitive aspect.
Yeah.
And that creates questions of fairness and things like that. So I think it's just really smart for creators to keep things on theme and story driven, but be careful that answers don't flow based purely off of just looking at a puzzle without engaging it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then players don't know the rules.
Yeah, and I think another thing that kind of was a critique of the games was like the driving force between the games.
What do you mean by that?
Kind of how the games just are very, I don't know the right word, I would say different, but they don't like, in like a series, right? Usually like the first one is kind of the one that maybe gets you more introduced to the game series, like in the style. And then Floor 13 is just different.
It's very different.
Very different. Obviously it's the same like layout of the website. It's the same. I mean, it's a print and play digital mix. So they're the same on that aspect, but they're just different styles of games. One is like Floor 13 is about this mysterious floor in an office building when you go back in and you find out you've been transported to quote unquote hell, to say the least. The other one is this Lost Temple where you kind of get characters and you meet like the professor.
Yes.
So you're trying to figure out where like they've gone and you have to go through old files. You get to meet a very entertaining and surprised guest halfway through it who maybe talks to you a little bit too much and is, maybe lost his body and just has his head is the way I'll put it. But they just are two different types of games. And I think one just the driving force of one is just completely different than the other.
Yes.
I don't know if I explained it really well, but that's how I felt.
Yes.
Right?
It was, I've thought about this a little bit. Do you watch The Office at all?
Oh, Jared. I of course watch The Office.
So there is an episode of The Office. It's a Halloween episode.
Yes.
And Aaron asked Gabe to amp up and adultify the Halloween party.
Oh, and you're talking about the video that comes in and it's just horribly graphic.
Gabe brings in I think it's called Cinema of the Unsettling.
Yes.
And there's a comment made by I think it's Meredith. I could be wrong about this.
Mm-hmm.
But she says, like, what is this even about? And Gabe says something to the effect of, well, I think the creators found out that even a narrative would be truly comforting. And it's just that element. And I kind of felt that in Floor 13 is like, there were no characters. There's definitely a driving force. But
absolutely.
Maybe it's purely just the narrative of that game was just so eerie and atmospheric that we just preferred a character, and even really cool characters.
Yeah.
One specifically that I don't want to ruin, that is in the Lost Temple.
Yeah.
But it just felt like the games were being driven differently, and I think Lost Temple just had a better vibe, a better flow to the overall experience versus Floor 13.
And obviously, I think the part that I think Jared covered a little bit, I think it's intentional. The game
it is intentional. Yes.
Floor 13 is about the mystery of what's going on the floor. So it's kind of very eerie. You're trying to figure out what's going on. Now, they do a good job of setting the theme. So you quickly learn what has happened in the office, but you don't know what's causing everything to happen in the office.
Right.
So then the hunt of the whole game is to figure out what's happening at the end. Then you confront the thing or the happening.
Yes.
And try to like end it and be able to escape the floor. Right? That's the game. While in Lost Temple, like you said, you get like a whole narrative of characters and a building that you have to kind of flow through.
And it was,
and then you end up in a Cthulhu-esque inspired temple. Not that it is exactly that, but I think the narrative is also just, like you said, it just is more. it almost holds your hand a little bit better. Like it feels like you're following the narrative the entire way, and it kind of like clearly tells you this is what's going on.
Yes.
While in Floor 13, you don't know, and that's kind of that's part of the fun of it.
Yes.
But also can be kind of a different force.
It is. It is. So I would just if you're gonna play one, because we're gonna wrap up this section talking about our overall thoughts. Lost Temple, a little bit more difficult, a little bit more time consuming than Floor 13.
Yeah.
And I think a big reason for that in talking with Ann and Chris, the creators from CU Adventures, is that this is based on one of their actual games.
Yeah.
So they were able to bring that home a little bit more and not start from scratch, whereas Floor 13 was a adventure from scratch.
Yes.
So that could play into it as well. But give me your overall thoughts between the games.
I love both a lot. If you have to ask me, like we talked about, if there was a clear winner, I would say Lost Temple. I think Floor 13 had a lot of fun in it. I definitely had a blast with the beginning of the game in Floor 13, getting set up with the mythology and what's kind of the representation of what's happening. While in Lost Temple, the narrative is very fun. I think the puzzles were great. I mean, overall, they're both a blast. I'd recommend both, like 100%.
Yeah, I agree. You should definitely play both. Very cost effective, and you'll have a really great time. The only thing standing in your way is, do you have a printer or not?
I don't.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for our first second. Hang on, we'll be right back with Puzzles to the People.
Solve puzzles, write reviews, win prizes. It's time for Puzzles to the People.
All right, Zach, pick a card, any card.
Dude, we are supposed to be doing an ad right now.
Okay, I know, just be cool, Zach. You know I always wanted to be a magician.
I don't think this is the right time or medium for a magic trick. But okay, I've picked a card.
Okay, look at it and don't tell me what it is.
And how's the audience going to know what card this is?
Just be cool, man. I just got this new Enigmas card deck, and I just wanted to show you a new trick I've been working on.
Oh, Jared, I'm sure your trick's going to be great, but there's something you don't know about that deck.
Okay, I see what's happening. Yeah, okay.
What?
You think you're a better magician than me. You think you know more about this deck of cards than I do. You're trying to heckle me and usurp the great Jared Zini.
Jared. Well, I did back the project on Kickstarter, and I've been playing the puzzle game hidden inside. There's actually a full puzzle hunt you can discover. I imagine you got those over at davidkwongmagic.com.
Nice try, Zach, but a magician never reveals his secrets. Magician's code.
Well, if you're looking for an amazing experience from a real magician,
I'm sitting right here.
Then head over to davidkwongmagic.com and pick up Enigma's Puzzle Hunt playing cards.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thanks for hanging with us. We're now here into a section that we call Puzzles to the People. And what we love to hear during this part of the show is your thoughts. And we went a little different on today's.
What?
A majority of the things that Zach and I will be agreeing or disagreeing with are actually thoughts from our colleagues and friends.
Ooh,
so we
different.
have a bunch of fellow excerpts of reviews from fellow reviewers like us, and we're going to dive into what they say as well as give them a shout out, because we really do have a really great community.
Shout out to them.
Of people who review games. Yeah. So the first one is from our friends David and Lisa over at Room Escape Artist, which, by the way, Leak, we have them coming on the show.
What?
I believe next episode.
Really?
For a really cool episode for a game that everybody has been talking about.
Ooh, I'm very excited to
talk
talk
about it. We'll leave that till the end of the episode.
What are you talking about? I didn't know this.
I know. You didn't get the inter-office memo.
What?
But here's what they said about this game. Whether you're judging the Lost Temple on price, polish, or puzzles, solid alliteration there, you guys.
Nice.
It is going to come out near the top of games created to play during the quarantine. High praise there, Zach. Are you on board?
I'm going to agree with this. I think I strongly agree. It's now, let's cover all 3 points. Price, right? The price of it, it's a donation system, so it starts off as $10, $15, and then you can pay as much as you want for the game. Affordable for everyone. Literally anyone can play this game. If it's like a less unfortunate family, or if it's someone who's been lucky in life in a little way, you were able to get it. And next part, polish, very, very well done.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the website, the digital aspect is phenomenal. The paper product that you actually get for the print and play part of it is also very well done. Now, it's paper, right? But I think the crazy part about this game that we didn't give it praise earlier is what they've been able to do with the paper.
Yes, that's a really good point.
They blew it out of the water on the paper aspect, because sometimes when I play these games, I'm worried that the paper aspect is not gonna live up to the expectation of what you could potentially do with them. And I was very blown away, specifically when we played Lost Temple, because that's the first time I played a print and play, what they did. And then when we got to floor 13, they were able to do the same thing again. So very kudos to both of those. And then the puzzles, we gave it praise earlier, but I mean, let's say there was 30 puzzles in both, like in total between both experiences. 29 of them, I would say, were very, very, very solid.
Yes.
There's maybe one that I could critique a little bit, but overall,
yeah,
very, very great. Solid.
I agree. All three of the P's it hits on.
True.
And even to say at the end there that it's near the top of games created to play quarantine, you've got to realize what that's comparing it to.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we do not cover on our show, and probably won't for the foreseeable future, is any type of live game, avatar-led game.
Yeah.
Because the intersection that we are spending the time with our podcast at is things that have some level of tangibility at your house. So we won't be covering video games. We won't be covering any type of avatar game. There's got to be at least one physical component to a game for us to want to review it. But that being said, there are some fantastic avatar games out there that if you're listening, you should play. We're not knocking on them. We're just saying that's not our lane.
Exactly.
And even for this, which is not a live avatar game, for games that cost way more, I agree. I've played some of the best ones out there that if you head over to the Escape Room Enthusiast group and see what they're saying, this is in the top 10 of quarantine-based games.
Yeah.
I fully believe. And that's compared to very expensive sets that are in some of these backgrounds of these lives, characters that are interacting with you in real time.
Mm-hmm.
This holds up. And I do agree with what David and Lisa have to say.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
All right, next one is from our friends CC and Brandon over at Escape the Rumors.
What up?
Shout out to them. They said this, more high praise. This was the best multiplayer platform digital game that we've played so far.
Ooh, that is very high praise. That's a lot of games to compare.
That is a lot of games to compare it against.
I'm gonna say I agree though. I 100%, or I say 100%. I agree with this very strongly. It is by far one of the best multiplayer platform digital games that I think we've played.
Yes.
by a mile.
Yes.
The way that it works, right? The other interesting part, which we've not covered, but they covered a little bit actually in this review, is that you can play this from anywhere, right? So what we mean by that is, let's say for some reason I've gone to California. Jared has the rest of it.
BlizzCon.
I went. Well, yeah. If it was live this year, currently actually it's on the the web. It's actually online right now. But yeah. So let's say I was in California and Jared is in his nice home with his family. He could be playing the game and ask me to play with him. I would be able to get the digital version of the game and kind of log into the website and be another person in the game. And I'd be able
to sync up.
I'd be able to sync up with them. I'd be able to mess around in the digital space like he is. It also would be I could technically print out the paper my own. So like we could, by myself and stuff like that. It's almost the perfect way of being able to just have multiple people play this game.
I agree.
It's crazy how solid it is.
I agree. It was from a technology standpoint, whoever built this, and I think they talk a little bit about that in their interview.
Yeah.
That individual destroyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think it was simple but elegant, and they did a really great job.
Yeah.
All right, number 3 is from our friend Matt over at Escape Matster.
What up?
And they said, Temple, now talking about the Lost Temple, is an insanely inexpensive option to experience, with an entertainment value far trumping some competitors, costing twice or even thrice. Great use of thrice there, Matt. The
Very
admission price.
I agree. You don't even have to ask me if I disagree or agree. I agree. We've given it such high praise already on its price point, as well as the entertainment value you do get from the game. We've actually just kind of talked about a little bit versus other Avatar type games and stuff like that. Games like this, it blows it out of the water in comparison. Now, there are games like Jared has talked about, some very solid Avatar pure digital games that give you, for the price, like you might pay a lot more, and it gives you really solid aesthetics, characters. Don't get me wrong, you should play those. Those are great.
Yes.
But if you're comparing it, this does as well as those, and it's cheaper by like a decent amount. So what they've been able to do with the price and the entertainment value is just insane.
I agree. Yeah. Price on point. And it creates such value. It's not something that we talk about a lot on the show, value. And that's oftentimes because we don't want to mess with anybody's money out there by saying,
sure,
this game was too expensive or inexpensive.
Agreed,
because I feel like that is very relative to your financial situation.
Very true.
Even though a lot of what we talk about here is subjective, but this is just one of those rare situations where it's like, this only makes the game better, because I could very easily see myself paying twice or thrice and being not upset and saying, oh yeah, that was it, because you could pay $30 a Zoom connection link per person or per household to play some of these Avatar games. And I think you may even have a better time playing this.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to keep this next one short and sweet. This is from Victoria. Shout out to Victoria for giving us some feedback.
Shout out.
This one is, I don't know if I would even call this critical, but it does bring up a good point that I want to talk about. She said, just did Lost Temple. It was really fun, but a little too much cutting for me and my partner.
Ooh, okay. That does bring up a good point. So I agree. This game was really fun, and they did Lost Temple. We did Lost Temple, so I can agree on that as well.
There we go.
The little too much cutting for my partner. So for us, I didn't feel it as much, but here's the thing about these games, and it's brought up a very good point. Specifically in Lost Temple, there's a lot of cutting out for some of the clues, right? And I can understand if someone finds that cutting out, let's say, 10 to 15 clues is a lot. And some of them are big. Some require you to cut in different directions. It's not like a simple, like, cut a square for some of them. Some of them require you to precisely do it, So I get it. Like, it's a lot of cutting. Now, I think one of the things that Floor 13 does well in comparison is I think it has way less cutting, if I remember it correctly.
I think you're right.
It has a lot of paper clues, but less of it is about cutting it out.
Yes, I agree.
So I think that's kudos to them for maybe on purpose or not being able to do that for that game, where it felt less cumbersome to some people of like cutting out stuff. And we've played some games where cutting is very important and very precise, to where Jared will very clearly tell you that he's a big scaredy cat of cutting small little squares that he always asks me to do.
I'm not the cutter. I think I missed out on some fine motor skill development as a child.
Me too. It's okay.
I don't hold my pencil correctly.
Same.
And so I try to be indirect about it whenever Zach and I pick up a game that requires folding or very like fine manipulation of physical objects. Yep. I'll usually grab onto something else to where the only thing that's left is the folding or cutting. And I'll be like, oh yeah, it would be great if you did that.
Or Jared picks it up, looks at it, and he goes, and then gives it to me. And I go, yeah, I got it.
Although we are going to be talking about a game coming up that we were playing where I took charge.
I was very proud of you. Yes.
Like someone had to step up, and both of us weren't willing to, and I was like, I'm gonna cut the dang thing.
I'm so proud of you, Jared.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we found a way around it.
Yeah,
and,
we worked around it.
And ended up not cutting. So maybe that's a bad example.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You attempted to try.
Yes.
And then we realized we didn't have to. So it's okay.
Shout out to all my people out there who are not the cutters in their group and have somebody else that can handle those detail-oriented things. All right, I want to move into my last one, and this is just to talk about conceptually the idea of print and plays in general.
Sure.
There are more cons than pros to print and play experiences. Agree or disagree?
Ooh, okay.
Because this isn't a genre that we cover. We haven't covered yet.
Yeah, we haven't.
But it is a genre that is out there. There's some really great print and play things out there. This is especially true for games that are focused at younger players. Mm-hmm. So, in a nutshell, do you think there's more cons than pros to print and play experiences?
Ooh, okay, this is hard because so this is obvious, but I have to compare it to a lot of things. So,
like, you mean different types of experiences?
Other types of media,
sure,
for these types of games, right? So digital, at home, subscription, like everything. I'll be honest, I'll just give my straight up point on it. I think there are more cons.
Oh, interesting.
So I could argue as well, the things that it does differently that, you have to compare by itself, right? So you are paying for a print and play. So the quality compared to like at home one-time experiences that you can pay like a good solid amount of money for.
A premium, yeah.
A premium. Now, obviously, they're going to be different polishes to them. One's going to definitely seem cheaper than the other, but you're paying that, right? So if you're paying a print and play, let's say it's $10, and you get, 15 pieces of paper and maybe something else, right? You're getting paper. So the quality is the paper. Now, you can do a lot of really cool things. That's the part that I could agree that I think there's some good pros to them, what they can accomplish with such like little space almost.
Yes.
But I think like when you ask me what I want to play or what I potentially like, if you gave me, let's say 3 games in front of me, right? Let's say you put a print and play, you put a box, almost like a mass market,
yes,
like an unlock box in front of me. And then you gave me like a subscription service, like an envelope, maybe a Scarlet envelope.
Oh, maybe a Scarlet envelope.
You're going to ask me which one I want to play. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to probably say that the print and play is my last.
I got you.
I just think there is more. I think I get more expectations out of other types of games that I think it's going to be solid and like I'll enjoy it personally. And I'm just scared. I would say that I think print and plays can't do enough. And luckily, we've learned through Floor 13 and Lost Temple that they can do a lot.
Yes.
And I haven't played much more, so don't get me wrong. I'm very excited to try others and see what they can do. But I just think there's way more that can go wrong in those types of games.
Yes, it is. I feel like the core premise of the argument is that you're trading accessibility for quality.
Exactly.
And given that opportunity, you would much rather pay more money for a quality experience in terms of maybe not necessarily the puzzle quality, but the material quality,
yes,
the tangible quality of what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. It for me, it just really falls on subjectively, what are you looking for in a game? What do you value in a game? Because I will tell you this, premium materials do not cover up bad puzzles.
Agreed.
And I know there's games out there that think that they can get away with really nice graphics and a nice outside looking box, and then you open it up and it's garbage inside. So what I will say is puzzle quality can really shine through regardless of medium.
Oh, 100% agree.
But but I guess what you're saying is if I get the same puzzle quality, I'll take a higher tangibility quality versus the paper that it comes on.
Yeah.
I can understand that. And because it does, like print and plays ask you to do some work ahead of time, right? We had to bust out the scissors and do this and that. So it is a trade-off, but I think it's what you're looking for. Because I've played a few more print and plays than you have, I believe.
Yeah.
But some of them have been good and some of them have been not so good. But there is I don't know what the word I want to use here is. There is a advantage to them because I can just have it right now. And I think that's so prevalent in our culture, just that ability to instantly give your customer the product.
Yeah.
Versus having to wait. I kind of like the wait a little bit because it kind of builds up the anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where you're coming from. I think what I would say is like agree to disagree, that it's what your preferences are going to determine that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good discussion there, Zach.
Yeah, it was.
We're going to take a quick break before our last segment, Questions for Creators. You guys hang around with us.
There are some awesome people who make the puzzles we love to solve. This is Questions for Creators.
Dude, I played the best game last night.
Jared, I thought we played all our games together.
Well, traditionally we do, but this game was designed to be played by yourself. It's called Box One, and it's a new game from Neil Patrick Harris and Theory 11.
Jared, I'm hurt. What am I supposed to just believe that there's clearly this made-up story of a game that's meant for only one person, and you couldn't even come up with something more clever than just Box One? Okay, you know what? I'm done. Call me when there's a Box Two.
Well, if you're not salty and you're looking for a truly awesome single-player experience, head to your local Target to pick up Box One. If you don't have or know what Target is, beg Angela Lawson Scott to ship you a copy internationally.
Wow, that was a sick ad, right, Jared?
The sickest.
I know, crazy sick. But yeah, welcome back, guys. This is Questions for Creators. In this part, we are going to discuss and ask questions to the amazing people who create the game. So, Jared, I have a very serious question I need you to answer.
You're just like all over the grid of emotions today. Like we were
What?
laughing. We were laughing coming into this, and then you get really.
What do you mean?
I can't deal with it right now.
What do you mean, Jared?
This is an emotional roller coaster I didn't sign up for.
It's okay. You're along for the ride now. So who are we going to have on the show today?
Well, today we have Ann and Chris from CU Adventures.
What?
They are based out of Illinois here
Ooh.
in the United States.
Shout out to Illinois.
They got some snow. You better,
Big snow.
they better believe that. But unlike us here in the South, people up in the North and the Midwest know how to prepare for these things.
That is true.
So I'm sure they made it out a little better than we did. But we are super excited to be spending some time with them, and we're going to hop right into that interview. Can you guys say your names for everybody listening today, and what were you doing before you made the CU Adventures at-home games?
I'm Chris Lukeman.
My name is Ann Lukeman.
And we're the owners of Champaign-Urbana Adventures in Time and Space, an escape room in central Illinois.
Before the pandemic, we were just regular old in-person escape room owners. We had 5 games. CU Adventures was one of the first escape rooms in Illinois. I think we were among the first 10, certainly. We opened back in 2015. And our games are really cool. We really have a strong background in production design and storytelling, and that's kind of what we like to focus on in our escape room games.
How'd you guys come up with your new games, and what kind of drove you to take a chance on doing it?
Sure. So in mid-March, Illinois was under a full shutdown, like a full stop, stay-at-home order that was pretty strongly enforced. So we had at the time a large number of staff, somewhere in like the 18
to 20 range.
20 people range, and
mostly part-timers, but a few full-timers too.
Some were able to go on assistance, some were not, and we wanted to do what was best to protect our staff. And then it seemed like the government funding was coming around, the first round of the payroll protection program that allowed us to pay people. So we had the capacity to pay people, but everyone was required to be at home. We were one of the really early recipients of it. So like we literally could not have people come into the office, even if we wanted to, which we didn't. So we tried to conceptualize a game that would use some of the strengths of our staff being at home, that would use some of the strengths of a vast amount of production design that we had established from a physical escape room that we've designed and redesigned several times, but had recently permanently retired. And we kind of put all that together in a blender and came up with the Lost Temple, which is a digital game we've had available since early May.
We partnered with a friend of ours, Barry Abrams, who is a really, really amazing kind of website guy, graphic design guy. He builds a lot of stuff for us. He has designed custom video games for our rooms. He's done a whole lot of stuff, but we partnered with him to get kind of the web interface half of it going. And then, like Chris mentioned, Lost Temple had been one of our earliest games that we had around for a long time physically. So we had a lot of very cool props that we could take pictures of, and we tried to kind of leverage the fact that this was an actual game that actually existed in real space to make it feel more like an immersive escape room. We also have really, really talented staff. Our game masters are, for the most part, like just come from a background of acting or playing D&D or other kind of performance-based things. So we kind of leaned on them to do some of the voiceover work. So we did a lot of voiceover for almost every part of the game. And as well as sound design, which I think really makes the game feel really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure any digital escape room that's out there, short of something you would unequivocally classify as a video game, has as much voiceover work as Lost Temple does. And that was just a happy accident that we were able to commit our staff to it, and our staff was great at it.
So one of the things that we like about your games a lot is that the format is very unique. How did you decide on that?
That's an interesting question. I mean, we hadn't really played very many at home. We played a few escape room in a boxes at that point, the commercially available ones. And they're a lot of fun, but they don't really replicate kind of that feeling of being in an escape room. And that's really what we wanted to try and replicate, that actual feeling. So it couldn't just be stuff on a table because we needed a way to gate it a little bit better. And we wanted to have audio and music and voiceover. We wanted to make it feel like a real like multimedia experience. There's video in Lost Temple. There's audio in Floor 13.
Yeah. I mean, March and April, play at home escape rooms were definitely still in the Wild West. There were a few companies that were doing established concepts, but this was long before Telescape came out. It was long before, Ready Mayor One was doing his thing with avatar driven stuff. Like I think everyone saw the writing on the wall pretty fast that avatar driven games were happening, but there wasn't any sort of formalization for other games that escape room companies were making that were play at home. There were a few from before the pandemic, and there were a few that I think were kind of happy accidents where their Kickstarter had been in 2019 or something like that, and they were getting ready to deliver around May. But we were really able to take a step back and hit a good medium for what can we do really well and smoothly, and what makes for a great experience for players. And that's kind of where we've settled on the interface, like 3D click around photos and stuff like that were great in theory, but we weren't sure we could pull them off in a way that looked clean. We weren't sure how players would interact with them. So we settled on sort of our loosely, it feels like an adventure game a little bit, without the landscapes of Monkey Island.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of conversations about it back when we were starting it, because we didn't want to make a video game. Like, there are a lot of people out there who make really good video games, and that's not what we do. So we didn't want to feel like we had to push ourselves into graphics that would make it a video game, because there's no reason to do that for what we were trying to do. We used a lot of the structure that we use in our normal games. So 3 kind of general spaces where you're often going to be going back and forth, but generally that helps kind of control the flow of the game. We really wanted to have that feeling of like, I unlocked a thing and I found a thing and I can pick it up and look at it. So that's where the, okay, you unlock this drawer. Now look at page 3. It's all these letters that you can read. Came from, is that we wanted to have that feeling. And then of course, Lost Temple, more than any of our other games, has a lot of kind of arts and crafts elements to it, because we wanted to push the medium and see what we could do. So there's a lot of cutting and folding that I think is pretty hit or miss if people like it or not. People who like it love it. The people who don't like it find it really tedious. But I mean, we just wanted to make it tactile. We wanted to, make it feel not like a video game, but like an escape room that you are playing in your home.
Yeah. It's that balance between immersion and the puzzle design that we wanted to hit really well. Like, in a video game, you're allowed to make super immersive spaces that can dominate the experience. And that's not what we thought we could do well, but we thought we could make an atmospheric space that's really fun to play in, but doesn't get in the way of the puzzles.
What difficulties did you have, like blending the digital aspects of the game and the physical aspects? And what areas did you think that this worked really well in?
One thing that we learned really, really fast is that nobody has printers.
Yeah, that was a fun. We had suspicions about it, but that was a fun thing to experience.
I think everybody's just using their printers at work when they need to print stuff, and then nobody was at work, so it was kind of a problem. So that was a fun limitation. But also, when we were designing it as a print and play, so we weren't sure how people were going to interact with it. We didn't have control of what the final product looked like. So there was a lot of thought and care put into, okay, if you have to cut out 2 pieces of paper and put them together, they have to be on the same page, because what if people print them out and they're at different zoom sizes or different orientations or something like that. So anything that would have to go together had to be on one page. We didn't want to be total ink hogs, so we did stuff in black and white, and we lightened it up in some places, and then we found we went too far, so we had to push it back. There was a surprising amount of beta testing in getting, the PDF, like just the correct format, so it would hopefully work with everybody's printers.
Yeah, and then we did a big old like pain in the butt check on everything. Like had everyone that we could play. Like, is this too onerous to expect people to do? Because our digital games are not the easiest in the world, but they're also not like grueling sort of puzzle hunt level, 5-hour experience.
They're long, but I think they're approachable.
Yeah.
We try to make our puzzles more approachable. Like you don't need to know how to, do some of the more typical puzzle hunt, puzzle solvey kind of things. We're not going to expect you to anagram anything unless we tell you to anagram something. We're not going to expect you to do like a Rot 13 situation unless we explain how to do that in the game.
Our approach to sort of the digital puzzle design is the same thing we look at when we're doing our physical room design, in that we want to make an experience that is a good gateway intro experience to escape rooms, to puzzling for everyone. We want this to at least be theoretically playable by the grandparent with 2 kids for the afternoon. And if they're not a group that really is interested in puzzling, they're probably not going to have a great time. But if they're there and just haven't had the opportunity, they're going to like the game and they're going to be able to succeed at the game. And after we sort of do that pass, we take a step back and say, okay, so we've got these puzzles or these interesting things that we're doing with the game. What can we do to make sure it's a satisfying experience for enthusiasts? Like we always do that pass. There's very rarely we'll take a super generic puzzle and have it be nothing new added to it. Either the art design is going to be perfect, either it's going to fit thematically into what players are doing in some way or into the story of what players are doing in some way, or we're going to take an expectation about that puzzle and twist it at least a little bit to make it a little bit interesting to somebody who's played 30 or 40 of these things.
Yeah, and a lot of the ways that we kind of modulate difficulty for experiences like that in our real life games are through game master interaction and hints, and we try to do it as in-world as possible so people who need more hints don't feel like they're getting a million hints. That's a little harder to do in this digital space, but on the plus side, there's no time limit, so enthusiasts will finish in 60 to 90 minutes, and sometimes first timers or people who aren't as experienced or groups with young kids, they might do a couple hours and then take a break and then come back the next day or something like that.
That's been one of the shocking things we've heard between our beta tests and releasing to the public. We've put loose like time expectations on all of our games. And we always hear back from groups that like, oh man, that was fun. It took us 4.5 hours, took us 5 hours to do. And that's been a challenge to approach from a marketing perspective, because I don't want to feel super disingenuous saying that it's and I don't want to make people feel like dumb when it takes them a long time. But I also feel like no one will believe us if we put out a game and say the time limit takes players between 60 to 540 minutes. Like that's just, it feels like something's wrong, but the game's playing fine. Like,
right. Yeah. And these groups aren't groups that are giving up on it. They're groups that are having a lot of fun and finishing it, but they are playing it in a different way than the way an enthusiast would play, which I think is fine. It's great. Including our self-service hints in the website was something that was absolutely necessary. I love players being able to take as many hints as they want whenever they want, because the game should be fun. That's one of the big things that that was a must-have when we were doing the game design, for sure.
Yeah, we wanted to do at least a little bit of we increment the hints, I think, really well, which is always appreciated. And then even if players have to like click through to the end, they get the feeling that they know how the puzzle works in a way that doesn't talk down to them. Yeah.
We try to make the hints very vague and at least give you a sense of puzzle solving as you're clicking through all the hints. And so at the end, it's not just saying this is the answer. You understand how you got to that answer.
How do you go about creating the puzzles in your games?
Lost Temple was a special case. So this was a game that we opened with a version of it in 2015. We redesigned to a different version. We totally did 100% repuzzle in 2016 because we changed how escape rooms, our theory on how escape rooms should work.
Right. Yeah. So the very first game we opened with was a version of this. It's the same story. We called it Office Hours. And even before we opened, I ran it as a tabletop game in Call of Cthulhu. So it's something that we've really had a lot of. We've put a lot of thought into the world, into the universe, into how things work. But as Chris said, it was our first escape room. We didn't know how to design escape rooms. So we saw what worked. We saw what didn't. We kind of reconfigured it into the Lost Temple, which ran for a really long time.
Yeah. And it had the added bonus of after we repuzzled, all of the people who had tried us originally got to come back and play it again. And they were having just as much fun with it. Like, we threw in some extra things like a super difficult challenge mode where if you beat the new version of the game with no hints, you get free t-shirts for all of your team.
We had probably,
like
3 or 4 groups do that?
Three
it was
or 4
really
groups
hard.
did it. One of them did it because they played the game twice. But that's their choice. They got shirts out of it. So it wasn't, and they didn't fly through it as fast as I think they were thinking they would in the second time. And I love talking about how this game was originally tested. Anne kind of glazed over it, but before we had our physical location that we were building out, she ran it as a Call of Cthulhu game, which is sort of a Lovecraftian Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game.
It uses the D100 system, which I love.
Yeah, at Gen Con, what was that? 2015.
Yeah, I think it was right before we opened.
So this gigantic gaming convention in Indianapolis, and she set players around the table, said this is going to be an atypical sort of Call of Cthulhu game in that you are 90% of the time just in this single room, and you have the following things to investigate. And they were like, well, I want to search the middle desk drawer. And she's like, you find these papers. And that was an awesome way to test puzzle design.
Yeah, it was a fun way to test the puzzles. It was a very handout heavy game. And then we included a little bit of combat at the end just for funsies when they went into the portal into the secret Lovecraftian temple.
Yeah, it was also a great way to test the story too. And so we had a huge amount of lore and backstory that we just didn't include in the physical escape room. We had puzzle designs that we abandoned because they didn't seem practical, but they were still floating around in the back of our minds.
And of course, we had 2 full versions of the escape room game with all of the different puzzles to pull from when we were looking to do this digital game.
Yeah, so the end product of Digital Lost Temple, we like to say it, even players who remember the 2015 version of this game and have played the 2016 to 2019 version, it has an hour of new puzzles. We repuzzled a few things. We took concepts from others and totally reskinned them. And then we created a pretty safe cushion of an hour of new content. So we were able to bring sort of the best of the best from what we had tested, like puzzles we knew worked, puzzles we knew players enjoyed, and bring that to a national audience, international audience. And then also we were able to include enough new content that our local fans would always be there as a backbone of sales and hype, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, our local fan community rules. We just have I think we live in the best community in the country, and the people who are here who come and play our games really truly love and care for us, and it's awesome.
We released the game as a kind of lower budget end game because we knew once it was out there, it required almost no upkeep on our end. Like, we made it to be very self-sufficient after the initial calls about minor tech support and minor hint support. We got all the flaws ironed out of the system, and it kind of just runs on its own. We put it out as a pay what you want with a $10 minimum. So $10 minimum keeps it as a really cheap game in the grand scheme of things, especially for the puzzle content. And
and especially, it's a pandemic. Nobody had any money. Nobody has any money. We wanted to make sure this game could be played by anybody who wanted to, anybody who is just desperate to do something at home, no matter how long it takes. It was especially in May and June when we released it. Everyone was just so happy to have something to do.
And then with the pay what you want model, it allowed our true fans, it allowed people who were still, working their office jobs, albeit at home, to support us in a way that was very meaningful and helped us not have to go into crippling debt last year.
Big question for y'all. What can we expect for the future of CU Adventures in the at-home space? Do you have any other ideas for like different types of games you can do in the future?
Well, what we have out so far is, of course, The Lost Temple, which was our first game, which we've talked about a lot. Floor 13, which was a little bit shorter. It is a little bit... It takes place in a haunted office building, so it's really great for corporate team building, but I think it's fun for everybody too.
Yeah, it's like an atmospheric ghost story. Like it's not a horror game at all, but it's a little spooky if you want it to be a little spooky. We designed it for the fall season, and we designed it to be not sterilized enough for company use, but it's a little cleaner. So if companies wanted to use it for team building or office parties, they could, and they would know the experience wouldn't take over 2 hours. They know they wouldn't have people like uncomfortable about some of the apocalypticness of Lost Temple or Lovecraftian squelchiness getting through.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fun for kind of a slightly more hip or edgy office that wants to do, something that's kind of playful in that office-y space.
So those two games use a digital game system that we developed in-house that's worked really well. When we were going into the Christmas season, when we were approaching the holiday season, we wanted to put together something that used that as a basis, but also would make a great gift to receive. Because you can give the digital codes, you can give, plays of Lost Temple and Floor 13, but it's not something for people to open, and we weren't sure it was going to be great for us over Christmas when we really, really needed to have the support to keep our lights on. So in what would it be? Late October, mid-October, we started designing something that we'd been playing around with since the beginning of the pandemic, which is Solve Our Shirts. It's a play-at-home escape room that's all based around a t-shirt as the central prop that has clues and secrets and storytelling elements. And the pack comes with a lot of other in-world documents that goes along with it, but we feel like it really differentiated itself from other play-at-home escape rooms and how it went around this central prop that you could then keep forever and wear forever and is still a useful thing to have in that everybody needs shirts. And so in the future, we hope that we're going to do a few more of those this year. I'm not sure if we're going to do any strictly digital games. We've got to really get a sense on how the market is, because even though ours are pretty highly esteemed, there's just a lot of competition in the market and a lot of good games, like games that people, you can tell, have been working on since June and just released and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's hard to get out there.
There's so much. I mean, we haven't even played, anywhere near as much as we need to play to know kind of where the market is now. So I think, we may do more digital games in the future, but I know, we're going to focus on the Solve Our Shirts right now, because I think that is very different from what everybody else is doing. And that's kind of how, we always want to be.
Yeah. And if the market isn't quite there, they will stick around forever, and we'll sell them as like Christmas presents for the next 2 years instead of just over the next 10 months.
In the question, we ask everybody, because it's super important to shout out other creators and to drive the community forward, is what games are you playing currently that you think our listeners should check out?
So, this recommendation has been echoed on all the lists this year. We had an absolute blast of a time playing Miss Jezebel a few weeks ago. That was fantastic. Right now, we are just about to set up on the big 3 of well-recommended play-at-home games. We've been waiting for a good opportunity to sit down with some of our quarantine pod and play. I think we have right over there on the shelf Witchery Spell, Soup, and the first episode of Society of Curiosities. And we've played their non-physical. We've played Society of Curiosities non-physical stuff, but and that was fantastic. The mysterious map heist, I believe. But we're really excited to get into it. And one of the great things is those creators are very supportive on some of the Facebook groups that are out there, on Instagram, on other social media, to help lift up the entire genre. Like, people are recommending what they are playing, and I can't say how much support and goodwill we've gotten from other creators who have played Lost Temple and talked about it, and that's helped us out a ton. And we're really excited to dive into these meteor games.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that. But I will say, the other Avatar game that really sticks out to me is I loved Evil Dead 2 so much. That one was so much fun. We're big Evil Dead fans in this household, so that was a blast.
Yeah, and we're friends with the Fuzzy Logic folks. They've been killing it. They did some of the cleanest implementation of Avatar-driven games that I think I've seen, and I think it really played to the strengths of their games, that it allowed people to focus on the puzzles and the great Avatar kind of GM experience.
Jason is just the absolute best Avatar GM. And if you haven't played a Fuzzy Logic game with Jason GMing, you need to. It is just an absolute joy. It's like you're hanging out with your new best friend.
That was awesome.
That was a sick
interview.
Very sick. I know.
No, they are awesome.
They are very great.
They are, I know they're just juggling so much right now between trying to get their escape room back into regular working order.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I don't think we talked a whole lot about at the interview, but that we had a little side conversation with them, is just the safety precautions that they're working through to make sure that their customers and their employees are safe, kind of trying to work us back into this post-COVID situation that we're all living into. So shout outs to them for that.
Very much so.
If you want to play the games that we have talked about today, please, please, please head over to cuadventures.com. That's the letter C, the letter U, adventures.com.
Oh, that threw me off. I thought it was going to be SEEYOU or SEA, like it was going to be a C. That would have been pretty sick. Am I right?
Yeah, somehow in this whole talk today, we forgot to mention that all of their adventures are nautical.
Yep.
But
surprise.
No, the letter C, the letter U, adventures.com. And play their games immediately. If you have a printer at home, rock and roll.
There's some.
And then for us, what you can do to help us on our adventure here at Puzzling Company, go to, what are we on? We're on
Facebook.
We're on Google.
Instagram.
We're on Instagram. Our podcast is live on Spotify. It's live on Apple. It's live on Google. It's live on
Stitcher.
A
lot of different platforms.
Go and please set us up for a regular download.
Yes, please.
It helps us in our future endeavors and just lets us know that there are people out there that are actually listening to us and want to keep having these cool interactions with us. And please send us a message sometime. If you are a fellow reviewer or someone that plays games a lot, hit us up. We'd love to have your feedback to include it in the show.
Yes. Also, if you ever have any things you want to ask us or like to potentially give us feedback on what you like about the show, what you don't, what you thought we could do, always just hit us up on our social medias as well. We're glad to answer.
Absolutely. Now, we did say something that we have to clarify.
What?
At the beginning of the show.
Okay, what was it?
Our next episode.
What about it?
I'm super excited about our next episode.
I still don't know what we're doing.
Okay, so our friends, David and Lisa.
Wait. Okay, they're from Room Escape Artist, right?
Room Escape Artist. Great job, Zach. You passed the test.
Oh, thank God.
They have agreed to come on the next episode and talk about the blockbuster sensation that is Box One.
What?
Yes.
That's awesome.
A game that we played, that we enjoyed. But what we're going to do a little different, since our buddy Neil Patrick Harris wasn't available for an interview.
It's really unfortunate. I'm going to his party later, though, so I'll talk to him.
Okay, yeah, if you would, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're gonna switch the format up a little bit just for this next episode. So in segment 2, we're gonna ask David and Lisa to review what other people are saying about this game. And then at the end, we're going to have a really cool, really spirited discussion just kind of about the state of the industry.
Yeah.
With two people that have been playing these games longer than Zach and I have, if we're being completely honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
And really have dug into this world on the side of what they mostly do, which is real life escape rooms and other immersive experiences. But we're going to be having a really cool discussion. Tune in. If you were to ask me what episode should you not miss, it's going to be this next episode.
Don't miss any of them.
Don't miss any of them. But next week is going to be super, super cool.
Yes.
And we will be posting a link so that we can get your feedback to give David and Lisa for the next episode.
Yes.
Well, all right. We're going to get on out of here. We're going to go try to fight through the snowpocalypse, icepocalypse on the way home. But thank you so much for listening with us today. For Jared and Zach, this is Puzzling Company.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Puzzling Company and online at puzzlingcompany.com. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, keep puzzling.